My son accidentally called me by another woman's name, and my husband froze. Hi, everyone. Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. They say that if you listen carefully to a family, you can hear its heartbeat. I used to listen to ours all the time. I loved the sound of it. My son Marcus was 5 years old when everything changed. He had this habit of waking up at around 6 in the morning, even on weekends, and padding down the hallway in his little dinosaur pajamas to find me. I'd usually be in the kitchen by then, making coffee, listening to the news on low volume, trying to steal a few minutes of quiet before the chaos of the day began. He'd wrap his arms around my leg. He wasn't tall enough to reach my waist yet, and mumble something into my thigh that sounded like, "Good morning, Mommy." I'd run my fingers through his messy dark hair and kiss the top of his head, and I'd feel this surge of love so intense it was almost painful. This moment, this small, simple moment, felt like everything. Like proof that life was worth living. Like I'd done something right. My husband, Michael, would come down about 15 minutes later. He'd be already showered and dressed for work, his tie slung over one shoulder. He'd kiss me on the cheek. Not passionate, not urgent, but present. He'd ruffle Marcus's hair and say, "Good morning, buddy." And then he'd sit at the kitchen table with his coffee and his phone, scrolling through emails while I made breakfast. We had a routine. Scrambled eggs on Sundays, pancakes on Saturday mornings, oatmeal during the week with fruit that Marcus would pick through, eating all the blueberries and leaving the strawberries. Michael would complain about the weather or his boss. Marcus would tell us about his dreams, usually involving dinosaurs or superheroes or both. I would sit between them, at the head of the table, feeling like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. I was 34 years old. I had a job as a marketing consultant that I did mostly from home, which gave me flexibility to pick Marcus up from school and take him to his soccer practice. Michael was a financial analyst at a firm downtown. He made good money. We had a nice house in the suburbs with a big backyard where Marcus could play. The mortgage was manageable. Our marriage was stable. Our life was stable. I remember thinking around that time that I was one of the lucky ones. I'd seen so many of my friends' marriages fall apart. Infidelity, financial stress, just the general erosion of love that happens when two people spend too many years together. But not us. Michael and I had something real, something that mattered. The photographs on our living room wall told that story. Our wedding photo from 12 years ago, me in my white dress, him in a tuxedo, both of us looking deliriously happy. A photo from when Marcus was born, Michael holding his son with this expression of pure wonder on his face. A family portrait from last Christmas, all three of us smiling at the camera, my hand resting on Michael's arm, Marcus tucked between us. I used to look at that wall and feel grateful. I'd think about how hard we'd worked to build this life, how much we loved each other, how Marcus had completed something in both of us that had been missing before. I was so naive. People don't always notice when their marriage starts to break down. It's not like a sudden earthquake. It's more like erosion. Gradual, subtle. By the time you see the damage, it's already been happening for a long time. I think it started about a year ago, maybe longer. Michael began staying late at the office more frequently. At first, it was just once or twice a week. Big project. He'd text me around 5 p.m. "Going to be here a while. Don't wait dinner for me." I'd feed Marcus early, get him ready for bed, and wait up for Michael to come home. He'd smell like the office recycled air and the faint scent of the cologne he wore. He'd eat the dinner I'd kept warm for him, sit on the couch, watch some show on his laptop, and then go to bed. I didn't think much about it. People have busy seasons at work. Michael was ambitious. He wanted to move up in his company, to provide better for our family. I admired that about him. But then the late nights became more frequent. 3 times a week, 4 times a week. Soon it was easier to list the days he came home at a reasonable hour than the days he didn't. I started keeping dinner warm less often, started eating with just Marcus more regularly. We'd sit at that little table, just the two of us, and I'd ask him about his day, and he'd tell me about his teachers and his friends and the things he was learning, and I'd feel this strange mixture of joy and sadness. Michael also became more distant. At the breakfast table, he'd spend more time on his phone and less time talking to us. When Marcus showed him a drawing he'd made at school, a crude picture of our family standing in front of our house, Michael barely looked at it before saying, "That's nice, buddy," and turning back to his emails. I tried to talk to him about it. I asked gently if everything was okay at work. He said it was fine, just stressful. I asked if there was anything bothering him. He said no, he was just tired. I asked if he was happy. He said, "What does that even mean?" in a tone that made it clear he didn't want to continue the conversation. So I stopped asking. Instead, I tried harder. I wore nicer clothes. I put on makeup even when we weren't going anywhere. I initiated sex more often. Not that it happened very often. He'd either say he was too tired or engage in a quick mechanical act that felt more like an obligation than an expression of love. I tried to make nice dinners on the nights he came home early. I dressed up for our anniversary and made reservations at the restaurant where we'd had our first date. Michael came, but he seemed distracted. He checked his phone 3 times during dinner. I remember sitting across from him that night, looking at this man I'd known for 13 years, and feeling like I didn't recognize him. But I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't want to start a fight that might push him further away. I didn't want to seem clingy or needy. I didn't want to be the kind of wife who complained about her marriage all the time. So I just lived with the distance between us. I got used to it. I made peace with it. I told myself it was just a phase, that we'd get through it, that marriages go through ups and downs. This was just a down. What I didn't understand was that Michael was filling the void that he was creating. What I didn't understand was that he had somewhere to be. Someone to be. I was so caught up in trying to hold our family together that I didn't notice it was already falling apart. It was a Saturday morning. Not a special Saturday, just a regular one. Michael had said the night before that he'd be home all morning. He had to catch up on some personal errands, he said. I was relieved. We hadn't spent a full morning together in weeks. Maybe, I thought, we could have breakfast together like we used to. Maybe I could have him back. I woke up around 6 and went downstairs. I made coffee and put on some music soft jazz, nothing loud enough to wake Marcus. I was in a good mood, feeling hopeful in that way you do when you think something good is about to happen. Marcus came down about 20 minutes later. He was still half asleep, dragging his stuffed dinosaur behind him, his hair sticking up on one side. He climbed into my lap like he did every morning, and I held him close, breathing in the smell of his hair, a mixture of his shampoo and childhood and innocence. "Good morning, sweetheart," I whispered into his hair. "Hi, Mommy," he said, his voice still thick with sleep. I made him oatmeal. He picked through the blueberries. Michael came downstairs around 7, already dressed in jeans and a t-shirt. I thought, good, he's taking his morning seriously. We're going to have a real morning together. "Good morning," I said, and I meant it warmly. I meant it as a peace offering for all the mornings where he'd been distant and distracted. He gave me that same polite smile he'd been giving me for months, the one that didn't reach his eyes. Morning. I made him coffee the way he liked it. 1 sugar, splash of cream. I made eggs and toast. We sat around the table, the 3 of us, and for a moment it almost felt like things were normal. Marcus was chattering about something that had happened at school, some drama between his friends. Michael was half listening while checking his phone. I was watching them both, my 2 favorite people, trying to memorize this moment because I had a feeling these moments were becoming rarer. Then Michael's phone buzzed. I watched his face change. He picked up the phone and looked at the screen, and something shifted in his expression. His jaw tightened. His fingers gripped the edge of the table. "I need to," He started, then stopped. He was clearly debating whether to leave or stay. I could see the internal struggle playing out across his face. "What?" I asked. "What do you need?" "Nothing," he said. "Just a work thing. I'll be back in a bit." But he was already getting up, already heading toward the door, even though he'd said he'd be home all morning, even though he'd promised. Marcus didn't notice. He was too focused on his oatmeal and the fantasy he was creating out loud, something about dinosaurs battling robots. But I noticed. I noticed everything. Michael was putting on his shoes when Marcus suddenly jumped up from the table. Our son had this energy that would hit him without warning. He'd be calm 1 second and bouncing off the walls the next. It was 5-year-old chaos, but it was the kind of chaos I loved. The kind that made our house feel alive. "Daddy!" Marcus called out, running toward Michael with his arms spread open. "Can I come with you? Can I come on your adventure?" Michael turned, and I saw him hesitate. He looked like he wanted to say no. And then Marcus threw his arms around his father's legs, pressed his face against Michael's thigh, and said, "I love you, Rebecca." The name hung in the air like a physical thing. Wrong. So impossibly wrong. I froze. My coffee cup stopped halfway to my lips. Everything inside me went cold. "What did you say?" I asked. My voice sounded strange, even to me. It sounded like it was coming from very far away. Marcus pulled back and looked at me, confused by my tone. "I said I love you, Rebecca." "Rebecca." I looked at Michael. His entire body had gone rigid. The color had drained from his face. His hand was still on the door handle, like he was considering just running out of the house and never coming back. "Who's Rebecca?" I asked. I was looking at my son, but I was asking my husband. I knew my son wouldn't have an answer. I was hoping my husband wouldn't either. I was hoping there was some innocent explanation. A teacher, a friend's mother, someone, anyone. But Michael couldn't even look at me. "I don't know a Rebecca," I said to Marcus, keeping my voice light, trying to understand how my son knew a name I'd never heard before. "Where did you hear that name, sweetie?" Marcus looked embarrassed now. He glanced back at his father, and something passed between them, the sort of unspoken communication that young children have with their parents, the recognition that something had been said that shouldn't have been said. "Papa calls you that sometimes," Marcus said quietly, "when you're not home." The words hit me like a physical force. Time did something weird in that moment. It slowed down and sped up simultaneously. I was aware of every detail, the way the morning light was coming through the kitchen window, the sound of the toast popping up in the toaster, the faint hum of the refrigerator. But I was also experiencing it all from very far away, like I was watching this scene unfold on a television screen. Michael's face had gone from pale to gray. He looked like a man who was drowning, like he was gasping for air that wasn't there. He started, and then he stopped. Started again. "That's not..." "He doesn't." But Marcus was nodding. He looked uncertain about why everyone was suddenly so serious, but he was also confident in what he was saying. "Yeah, Papa says Rebecca is so smart, and I love Rebecca so much." And he shows me pictures on his phone. Pictures. On his phone. I felt something break inside me. Not slowly. Suddenly and completely, like a glass dropped from a great height. "Michael," I said. My voice was still calm. I was proud of that. I was managing to sound like a person who was asking for an innocent explanation, rather than a wife who was having her entire life dismantled before her eyes. "What is your son talking about?" He still couldn't look at me. "Michael," I said again, "look at me." He did. And when our eyes met, I knew. I didn't need any other explanation. I could see it all right there in his face, the guilt, the shame, the fear of being caught. I could see it all written across his features in letters so large that I wondered how I'd missed them. "I can explain," he said. Okay, I said. I stood up and took Marcus's hand. Why don't you go play in the living room for a few minutes, buddy? Mommy and Daddy need to talk. Are you mad? Marcus asked. He was worried now. He could sense that something was wrong. No, sweetheart. Daddy and I just need to talk about grown-up stuff. Go on. You can watch cartoons. Once he was gone, once I could hear the television come to life in the other room, I turned back to Michael. We stood there in the kitchen, in the place where we'd shared so many meals, so many moments, and I waited for him to explain. I waited for him to tell me some story that would make this okay, that would turn a knife into a spoon, a betrayal into a misunderstanding. How long? I asked. It's not what you think, he said. How long? He ran his hand through his hair, and I watched him debate whether to lie to me. For a moment, I could see him considering it. I could see him thinking about whether he could gaslight me into doubting what my son had just said, what his guilty face was currently saying. 6 months, he finally admitted. 6 months. Half a year. My son had seen pictures of another woman. My husband had been calling me by her name when our son was around. How many times had that happened? How many conversations had I missed? How many moments had my son witnessed that I knew nothing about? Who is she? I asked. Someone from work. And you've been... I couldn't even say it. I couldn't form the words. I was afraid that if I said it out loud, it would become more real. Right now, I could still pretend this was a nightmare, that I'd wake up soon. I'm sorry, Michael said. I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. I never meant for Marcus to... For Marcus to what? To find out his father is betraying his mother? Too late for that. I walked out of the kitchen and went upstairs to our bedroom. I didn't slam the door, though I wanted to. I just closed it quietly and sat on the edge of the bed, and I felt my entire body start to shake. 6 months. It had been happening for 6 months, and I'd been downstairs making breakfast, trying to hold a marriage together that was already completely destroyed. I didn't have a meltdown. I didn't cry. I didn't scream or throw things or do any of the things that probably would have felt cathartic in that moment. Instead, I went into some kind of autopilot, some survival mode. I told Michael to leave. He packed a bag and went to a hotel. I told him not to contact me except through email. I called a lawyer. I made an appointment with a therapist. I went through the motions of dismantling our life with the efficiency of someone who has nothing left to lose. Marcus asked questions that broke my heart. Where's Daddy? I told him his father had to go away for work. Why is he staying at a hotel? I told him that sometimes grown-ups need space. Are you sad? I said I was a little tired, but that I was okay. I lied to my son to protect him, the way mothers do, but my lies were kinder than the truth, so I told myself it was the right choice. I started digging. I logged into our joint bank account and looked at the statements. There were restaurants I didn't recognize, hotels, flowers ordered and sent somewhere that wasn't this address. There was a pattern to it all, always on the days when Michael said he was working late. Always on the nights when I was home with Marcus. Through the lawyer, I obtained text messages, hundreds of them. Flirty at first, then intimate, then explicit. My husband had been sexting another woman for 6 months. There were photos, not explicit, but affectionate. Michael and Rebecca smiling at each other at dinners I never attended. Rebecca kissing Michael on the cheek. Rebecca with her hand on his arm. She was beautiful, in an obvious sort of way. Long blonde hair, bright smile. Young, maybe 30. She looked happy in every photo. She looked like someone who had no idea she was helping to destroy a family. Or maybe she did know. Maybe that was part of the appeal. I read through all of it. The text messages, the emails, the credit card statements. I documented everything. Not for legal purposes, though my lawyer said it would help. I did it for myself. I needed to understand how deep it went. I needed to know exactly how much of a fool I'd been. What I discovered was that Michael had been living a double life for half a year. He had gone to hotels with Rebecca. He had had lunches with her. He had sent her love notes. He had told my son that he loved her. So casually, so often, that our 5-year-old had absorbed it, integrated it into his reality, and then repeated it back to me without even realizing what he was saying. I wondered how many times Marcus had overheard them on the phone together. I wondered what he understood about what was happening. I wondered if my son had been carrying around this secret, not understanding that it was a secret, just knowing that Daddy called a woman named Rebecca, and that made Mommy sad. I thought about all the nights I'd waited up for Michael to come home. All the nights I'd wondered what he was doing, where he was, why he seemed so distant. And the answer was, he was with her. He was with Rebecca. And he was telling her that he loved her. And he was so careful not to let his real family know. I called my mother and told her I was getting a divorce. She cried. I told her I'd tell her the whole story later, that I couldn't talk about it yet. She didn't push. I called my best friend Sarah and told her. She wanted to drive over immediately, but I told her not to. I told her I just needed to know that people knew, that if I fell apart, there would be someone there to put me back together. But I didn't fall apart. Not yet. That would come later, in private, in the dark hours of the night when Marcus was asleep and I was alone with what had happened. A week later, Michael wanted to talk. He'd been calling and I'd been ignoring the calls. He'd been trying to email and I'd told my lawyer to let him know that all communication should go through her. But he showed up at the house on a Saturday afternoon and I let him in because I was tired of running. Marcus was upstairs in his room. I made sure of that before I let him into the living room. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "I know sorry doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know how sorry I am. I made a terrible mistake. I wasn't thinking clearly. I don't even know what I was thinking." "Yes, you do," I said. I was sitting on the couch and he was standing, like he didn't feel he had the right to sit down anymore. "You were thinking that you could have an affair and no one would find out. You were thinking that you could live a double life and keep both of us. You were thinking about yourself. You were thinking that your happiness was more important than your family. That's not fair," he said. I was struggling. I was unhappy. So was I. I cut him off. I was unhappy too. I was lonely. I was confused. But I didn't go find someone else. I tried to fix our marriage. I tried to reach out to you. I tried so hard to bring you back. "I know," he said. "And I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I was a coward. I'm sorry that I couldn't tell you what I was feeling. I'm sorry that I hurt you." He sat down then, on the armchair across from me, and he put his head in his hands. He looked broken. He looked destroyed. And I felt nothing. I felt absolutely nothing. "How is Marcus?" he asked. "How is he doing with all of this?" "He's confused. He misses his father, even though his father spent 6 months lying to him. He doesn't understand where you went or why you left. I told him you had to go away for work. I haven't told him the truth yet. He's 5. He's not ready to know that his father is a liar and a cheat. I want to see him," Michael said. "Please, let me explain this to him. I'll figure out what to say." "You're going to do no such thing," I said. "You made a choice. You chose Rebecca over your family. Now you get to live with the consequences of that choice. You can see Marcus through supervised visitation for now. My lawyer will work out the details with your lawyer. You can be part of his life, but only on my terms. Is that clear?" He nodded. He looked like he was about to cry, and I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered all those nights he came home late, all those times he couldn't look me in the eye, all those moments when my son was getting to know a woman's name without knowing who she was. "I want you to know something," I said. "I don't hate you. If I hated you, this would be easier. But I don't hate you. I'm disappointed in you. I'm furious with you. I'm heartbroken because of you. But I don't hate you. What I feel is worse than hate. It's indifference. It's the understanding that the man I thought I married doesn't exist. And I don't know how to feel about the man who actually exists. He left after that. He didn't argue or try to convince me or beg for another chance. He just left. The divorce took 4 months. Michael fought me on some things. He wanted 50-50 custody, which I was willing to do. But he wanted to take Marcus overnight, and I wasn't ready for that yet. He wanted to keep the house, which was ridiculous given that I was keeping Marcus in it. He wanted to pay minimal child support, claiming financial hardship even though my lawyer had seen his bank statements and knew exactly how much he was spending. In the end, we settled. I got the house. I got primary custody of Marcus, with Michael seeing him every other weekend and 2 evenings a week. I got spousal support for 2 years and child support until Marcus turned 18. Michael kept his retirement accounts and his car. It wasn't perfect, but it was fair. During all of this, I learned things about my marriage that I hadn't known. Things that came out in depositions and emails and things people told me because they felt I deserved to know. I learned that Michael had been seeing Rebecca even before he admitted to her. I learned that he had taken her to the same restaurant where I'd taken him for our anniversary dinner. I learned that there had been other women before Rebecca. Colleagues, clients' wives, people he met at conferences. I learned that my marriage had been a lie for longer than just 6 months. The affair with Rebecca was just the most recent in a series of indiscretions. I'd been so focused on trying to save something that had already been dead for years. I learned that I'd been the only one who didn't know. My mother had suspected something. Sarah had tried to tell me that something was wrong. Even some of Michael's colleagues knew that he was having an affair. I was the last to know about my own marriage. I was the last to know that I was living with a man who didn't love me, who had never really loved me, or at least who didn't love me enough to be faithful. But I also learned something else. I was stronger than I thought I was. I learned that I could get up in the morning and take care of my son and go to work and hold my life together, even when it felt like everything was falling apart. I learned that I had friends and family who loved me. I learned that I could survive this. About 6 months into the divorce process, I ran into Rebecca at the grocery store. I recognized her from the photos. The blonde hair, the bright smile. She was in the produce section, picking out avocados, and she had no idea who I was. I could have walked away. I could have pretended I didn't see her. But I didn't. I walked straight over to her. "You're Rebecca," I said. It wasn't a question. She turned, confused, and then I saw the moment she realized who I was. The color drained from her face. "I'm Michael's ex-wife," I continued. "I wanted to thank you, actually. You did me a favor. You showed me what my husband was capable of. You showed me that the life I thought I had was a complete fiction. So thank you." I walked away before she could say anything. I left my half-filled cart in the middle of the aisle and walked out of the store. I didn't feel triumphant or angry or satisfied. I just felt tired. Later, I found out that Michael and Rebecca had broken up about 2 months after I filed for divorce. Apparently, the affair was more exciting when it was illicit. Once Michael was available, once the sneaking around was over, Rebecca lost interest. Michael called me and asked if we could try to work things out. I laughed for the first time in months. "No," I said. "We're done." "But you said you didn't hate me," he protested. "You said you felt indifference." "I do feel indifference toward you," I said. "That's exactly why we're done. I have nothing left to give you. Not anger, not love, not even hate. You're a stranger to me, Michael, and I'm okay with that." It's been 2 years now since that Saturday morning when Marcus said Rebecca's name. 2 years since I discovered the truth about my marriage. Michael is a consistent father now. He sees Marcus every other weekend and usually picks him up from school on Wednesdays. He pays his child support on time. He's respectful and cordial when we interact, which isn't often. We don't talk about anything personal. We talk about Marcus. That's all we have in common now. I've rebuilt my life. I'm working full-time now instead of freelancing, which gives me more independence and more of a reason to get out of the house. I go to therapy every week. And I talked to my therapist about things I probably should have talked to Michael about years ago. I've reconnected with friends I'd neglected. I've started dating again, cautiously and carefully, with a new understanding of what I want from a relationship. Marcus is thriving. He loves spending time with his father, and Michael is trying to be a better parent on his days with Marcus. He's showing up, being present, not checking his phone every 5 seconds. He's doing the work to repair his relationship with his son. But here's the thing. I don't think Marcus will ever forget that morning. I don't think he'll ever fully understand why his father suddenly wasn't there, why his mother became sad for a long time, why his world got rearranged without his permission. I also know that I'll never forget the moment when he said her name. I know that I'll never forget the look on Michael's face when he realized he'd been caught. I know that I'll never forget the moment when I understood that the man I'd built my life around was capable of systematic, premeditated betrayal. But I also know that I survived it. I know that I didn't let it destroy me. I know that I got up, made a plan, executed it, and moved on. I know that I protected my son while also being honest with him about the fact that adults sometimes make mistakes. I know that I demonstrated to him, through my actions, that you can survive betrayal, that you can start over, that you can build a life that's even better than the one you had before. People always ask me if I regret marrying Michael, if I wish I could go back and undo it all. And the answer is complicated. I don't regret it because Marcus exists. My son is the best thing in my life, and he wouldn't exist if I hadn't married Michael. I'm not willing to erase him just to erase the pain of the divorce. But I do regret not seeing the signs earlier. I regret being so willing to accept his explanations for his behavior. I regret prioritizing keeping the peace over having difficult conversations. I regret not trusting my own instincts about what was wrong. What I've learned is that you can love someone and they can still betray you. You can build a life with someone and that life can still fall apart. You can do everything right and the other person can still do you wrong. That's just part of being human. That's just part of being in a relationship. But I've also learned that you can survive it. That you're stronger than you think you are. That the life you build after devastation can be better, fuller, more authentic than the life you had before. I'm not grateful for what Michael did. I'm not grateful for the betrayal or the lies or the destruction of my marriage, but I am grateful for what I've learned about myself through all of it. I'm grateful that I know what I'm capable of. I'm grateful that I know how to stand up for myself. I'm grateful that I know I can take care of myself and my son. I'm grateful that I know what I will and won't tolerate in a relationship. And I'm grateful to my son for saying the one thing that needed to be said, for accidentally revealing a truth that I was too blind to see, for without meaning to, saving me.